Riot police in Ferguson used smoke bombs and tear gas to break up angry crowds on Monday night, while protesters hurled rocks and set cars and buildings on fire. Security forces are already facing criticism over their handling of the unrest. Now, as you can see in that video, several people tried to carry the woman away but were tear gassed by police. Earlier, we heard from an activist who was involved in the march just after the verdict was announced. Let's listen to his perspective on what happened there.
You have to look at the scene that happened at the Ferguson police station, which I was at. There were several hundred people, and we were waiting out in the near freezing temperatures for a long time. When the non-indictment came through, it was like a kick in the gut. Michael Brown's mother was there at the protest, and she was terribly traumatized, and she said, "This just proves they don't care. They're never going to care. This has been my whole life." A black woman with 6 children told us, if Darren Wilson doesn't get indicted, it means my children have no future. And then, this is important, a march began. People began to march in the streets, and they got no more than a few hundred yards, and what were they met by? Lines of riot police with heavy-duty riot vehicles. So what that message was is you can't even speak out. You can't even protest. Your voices mean nothing.
Protests over the case have been snowballing in dozens of cities on the east and west coasts and all across the Midwest as well. In fact, we actually have live pictures down in the corner of our screen of what's happening right now in Ferguson. But here are the latest pictures from New York City. The crowd is heading towards Lincoln Tunnel to block off access there. The city police chief has told officers to show restraint. Reports are now also coming in that tear gas is being used against the protesters. Meanwhile, over 100 protesters have gathered at Chicago's City Hall and declared a 28-hour sit-in in front of the mayor's office. The picket was organized by the Black Youth Project in response to the verdict in the Michael Brown case. The group says it will expand its campaign across the United States. And in Minneapolis, a car rammed into a crowd of protesters, knocking down several people and running over at least one. You can see bystanders rushing to that vehicle and trying to smash the windows, but the driver keeps going and plows through the crowd, making an escape. In Boston, more than 1,000 people disappointed by the Michael Brown case verdict are taking to the streets. The protesters can be seen blocking major intersection in the Boston area. The event organized by the Black Lives Matter group, and it has been peaceful so far. Now, hundreds also rallied in the Capitol. RT's Gina Chichkan has been following the situation in Washington, D.C.
It's a nationwide outrage at the grand jury decision not to even charge Darren Wilson with a crime. Washington, D.C., where I am, has a large black community. Last night, hundreds took to the street to protest what happened in Ferguson. There were protesters outside the White House chanting "Black Lives Matter." Although here in Washington, D.C., it was a peaceful demonstration. People are angry. Of course, what we saw in Ferguson last night and this morning was something else. People directed their anger not just at the police, but at the media as well. Take a look.
The building is basically collapsed. You can hear the explosions going on inside there from whatever is inside, whether it's... Sorry, I just got hit by a rock.
If you could pan down and show that.
Hey, man, you.
All right, we heard that. Excuse us, those watching at home. This is live television.
Officers will be going out. Also, what you're looking at now on the other side of your screen.
Of course, kudos to all journalists who were in the thick of events in Ferguson last night. They were tear gassed by the police with everybody else. This again shows just how angry people are. Many don't believe that Michael Brown's killing is going to change anything in what they see is a deep bias in law enforcement against black people.
RT America correspondent Manila Chan is in Washington right now watching the protests there. You can follow her on Twitter for pictures and videos from the event. And just a few hours ago, hundreds of protesters gathered outside the CNN headquarters in Atlanta, Georgia. Ted Rall, political cartoonist and columnist, spoke to me earlier about why anger is being directed at the media.
In the United States, the media is supposed to be the fourth estate, the watchdog of democracy that is holding the political classes to account and defending the downtrodden and the oppressed. But in reality, more and more corporate media defends the interests of the system. Now, this has always been the case, but it's become even more pronounced in recent years. And it isn't surprising with minorities and other disadvantaged people unable to tell their stories and be heard, that they would express frustration. I mean, since the Michael Brown shooting in August, how often have Americans seen real incidents or testimony on the part of African Americans who've been mistreated or abused by the police? Never. They're not invited on Fox or CNN or, for that matter, on MSNBC. So we're talking about a voiceless population that doesn't see the media as representing them or even giving them a fair shake. They just view them as part of a system that oppresses them.
Our web team has minute-by-minute coverage of the unrest in Ferguson and across the U.S. That is on RT.com.